Let me start with a moment that might feel uncomfortably familiar. You're in a conversation with someone and you walk away smaller, not because they yelled, not because they hit you with some dramatic insult, but because they did that thing, that subtle eye roll, that just joking comment, that half smile that says, "Who do you think you are?" And later, when you replay it in your head at 2 a.m., you don't just feel hurt. You feel embarrassed for even wanting what you want, for even being who you are. That's the shame trap. And toxic people are really good at building it, not with chains, but with whispers. They don't have to control your whole life. They just have to make you doubt your worth long enough to keep you quiet, keep you grateful for crumbs, keep you from taking up space. And if we're not careful, we start doing their job for them. We carry their voice inside our own heads. So let's name it. Let's understand it. And more importantly, let's learn how to step out of it. Shame is a social wound, and toxic people weaponize it. And I want to slow that down because those two words, social wound, matter. Shame doesn't grow in a vacuum. It doesn't show up because you're weak or too sensitive or overthinking. Shame is something that happens between us. It's born in relationships, in families, in workplaces, in friendships, in communities. It's that moment you reach for connection, and instead you get a message, spoken or unspoken, that who you are, what you feel, what you need is too much, not enough, or just plain wrong. And toxic people, they are skilled at pressing right on that bruise. Most of the time, they don't storm into your life with a villain cape on. They show up as charming, funny, insightful, maybe even generous. But then slowly, subtly, there's this shift. When you're excited about something, they smirk. When you're proud, they find the flaw. When you're hurting, they make it about how your hurt inconveniences them. And if you try to name any of this, you get some version of "you're being dramatic," or "I was kidding," or "you're too sensitive." That's not a disagreement, that's a strategy. Because the fastest way to control someone isn't to overpower them, it's to make them doubt themselves. Shame is the fear of disconnection. It's that deep, gut-level belief that if people see the real you, they won't want you. And toxic people play with that fear like it's a remote control. They create a climate where belonging feels conditional, where love feels like something you earn by staying small, staying quiet, staying agreeable. They don't have to say, "be less." They just have to make being more feel unsafe. Let me say it really plainly. Shame is not "I did something bad." Shame is "I am bad." And once you carry that belief, you will work very hard to manage other people's perception of you. You'll edit your stories before you tell them. You'll soften your opinions halfway through a sentence. You'll laugh at a joke that hurts you because the cost of not laughing feels like losing the relationship. You start living inside a performance of yourself because authenticity feels like a risk you can't afford. And here's the kicker. Toxic people often don't even need to be around for the shame to do its work. Once the pattern is set, you internalize it. Their voice becomes a kind of soundtrack in your head. You start anticipating their judgment before they even speak. You shrink yourself preemptively. You say no to the opportunity, the dream, the boundary, the hard conversation, because you can already feel the shame of "who do you think you are?" It's like they've planted a lever inside you and they can pull it from a distance. That's why I call it a trap, because it's not just the moment you're hurt. It's the way your world starts getting smaller afterward. It's the way you stop reaching, stop trusting, stop taking up space. And if that's happening to you in any relationship, I want you to know something. The problem is not that you're too much. The problem is that someone benefits from you believing you are. And once we see that clearly, once we name shame as a social weapon, it becomes a lot harder for it to hide. That's where we start. And that sets us up to talk about how the trap keeps tightening, especially when a relationship runs on constant rank. The trap works through constant rank. And I know that phrase can sound a little clinical, so let me put it in human terms. Constant rank is what happens when a relationship feels like a ladder instead of a meeting place. When there's always someone above and someone below. When every conversation, Every decision, every success, every mistake is quietly being scored. It's not partnership, it's positioning. Toxic people are obsessed with rank because rank gives them control. If they can keep you one step down, they don't have to face their own insecurity. So they create a world where you are always proving, always performing, always trying to get back into favor. And what's chilling is how normal it can start to feel. You don't wake up one day and say, oh, I'm living in a hierarchy. It's more like you notice you're picking your words carefully. You notice you feel nervous sharing good news. You notice you're more relieved when they approve of you than you are proud of yourself. That's constant rank. Here's how it usually plays out. If you're doing well, they find a way to shrink it. You get a promotion and they say, well, now you'll be too busy for us. You start a project and they say, that's cute, but is it realistic? You set a boundary and they say, wow, you've really changed. The message is, success is dangerous here. Growth costs you love. So you start to dim your own light to keep the peace. If you're struggling, they magnify it. They don't just hold you accountable. They use your pain as evidence that you're not capable, not stable, not trustworthy. They stack your worst moments like bricks and then hand you the wall to carry. And over time, shame doesn't just say you messed up. Shame says, this is who you are. Constant rank makes that feel believable because your worth is always being measured against theirs. And let me say something that's really important. Constant rank doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it's wrapped in help. It's the person who says, I'm only being honest, but their honesty always lands as humiliation. It's the friend who's just teasing, but somehow you're the punchline every time. It's the partner who keeps correcting you, not to support you, but to remind you who's smarter, who's more capable, who gets to define reality. It's the family member who acts like the gatekeeper of your identity. That's not you. You're not like that. You can't handle that. Rank, rank, rank. And the cost of living in constant rank is huge because when you're always auditioning for your place, you stop being curious. You stop taking normal risks. You stop asking questions that might make you look ignorant. You stop bringing up needs that might make you look needy. You stop trying new things that might make you fail publicly. You basically trade your aliveness for approval. That's why toxic systems love shame. Shame keeps us small, not by crushing us once, but by exhausting us daily. It keeps us so busy managing our image that we don't have energy left to build our life. And if you're hearing this and thinking, oh my gosh, that's my relationship, I want you to pause and just notice what's happening in your body. That tightening, that sinking feeling. That's your system recognizing the ladder. Because real connection doesn't require rank. Real love isn't a throne, it's a table. And if you're constantly trying to earn your seat, you're not in connection, you're in control. And that's exactly why your body starts speaking up before your brain catches on. Your body knows before your brain does. And if you've ever felt that weird split inside yourself, where your head is saying, it's fine, it's not that big a deal, and your body is saying, nope, 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 then you already understand what I mean. We are so good at talking ourselves out of what we feel. We can rationalize almost anything, especially when the stakes are belonging. But your nervous system, it's not impressed by your spreadsheets of excuses. It keeps the receipts. Here's what I've learned from the research and from being a human with a very reactive body. Shame doesn't just live in the mind. It lives in the body first. It shows up as physiology before it becomes a paragraph in your head. Tightness in your chest, that hot flush in your face, the sudden drop in your stomach like you missed a step, your throat closing up right when you want to speak, the urge to laugh too quickly, to smooth things over, to say, I'm just kidding, even when you're not. That walking on eggshells feeling. That's not metaphor. That's your body scanning for danger. And the danger your body is sensing isn't always physical. It's social. It's relational. Your body is trying to keep you safe from humiliation, rejection, and the kind of disconnection that feels like survival. Because for our brains and bodies, belonging is survival. That's why toxic people don't have to punch you to hurt you. They don't have to raise their voice. They just have to create uncertainty about your worth. And your body catches that uncertainty immediately. Think about the last time someone said something that was small but landed big. Maybe they corrected you in front of other people. Maybe they made a joke at your expense. Maybe they went cold when you were excited and you told yourself, let it go. But your body didn't let it go. Your shoulders went up. Your jaw tightened. You started rehearsing what you'd say next time. You felt a little quieter after that, a little more careful. That's your body saying, we are not safe to be fully seen here. One of the most common shame responses I see, and I do it too, is over-explaining. You feel that spike of fear and suddenly you're giving a 10-minute TED Talk to justify a simple need. I'm sorry, I know it's silly, but I was just thinking, and maybe I'm wrong, and if it's not a big deal, that's not a personality quirk. That's a stress response. Your body is trying to get you back into connection by shrinking the risk. It's negotiating for your belonging. And when we ignore that, when we keep overriding our bodies with, it's fine, we lose our own internal compass. We start confusing anxiety for normal. We normalize dread. We call hypervigilance being thoughtful. We tell ourselves we're just being low maintenance when really we're disappearing. The body keeps turning up the volume until we listen. It'll do it through exhaustion, headaches, insomnia, that feeling of being on edge for no reason. Not because you're broken, but because your system is smart. So if you're trying to figure out whether someone is keeping you small, pay attention to the pattern in your body, not just the story in your head. Do you feel expanded after time with them or contracted? Do you feel more like yourself or less? Do you feel relaxed in your skin or braced for impact? Your body is giving you data in real time. And I want to be clear, listening to your body doesn't mean you're blaming the other person for every uncomfortable feeling. Sometimes your body is reacting to old wounds. Sometimes it's telling you, hey, this reminds me of something. But even then, that's still important information because it means something here needs care, honesty, and boundaries. Which brings us to the next layer of the trap, because once your body is on high alert, toxic people can start using intimacy itself as leverage, making closeness feel like something you have to earn instead of something you get to share. Toxic people often use intimacy as leverage. And this is one of those points where I can feel the room get a little quieter because we all know what it's like to want closeness so badly that we miss the fine print. Intimacy is supposed to be a place where we exhale, where we don't have to earn our humanity, where our stories are handled with care. But in toxic relationships, intimacy gets twisted into a currency, something you pay with, something they collect, something they trade in when they want control. It can start really sweet. They share something tender with you. They let you in. They say, I've never told anyone this before. And your heart opens because that's what hearts do. We're wired for connection. So you share too. You bring your real self to the table. And for a while, it feels like, oh wow, we're building trust. But then you notice the shift. The thing you told them in a raw moment becomes a weapon later, not always in a big, obvious way. And sometimes it's a tiny cut. You say you're tired and they say, well, you always get overwhelmed, remember? You share a dream and they say, I just don't want you to get hurt like last time. The subtext is, your vulnerability belongs to me and I get to decide what it means, or they keep receipts. They do something kind and it's real kindness in the moment. And then later, it comes back with strings. After everything I've done for you, you owe me. If you loved me, that's not generosity, that's leverage, that's closeness used as a bargaining chip. And it's devastating because it makes you question your own memory. You start thinking, maybe I am ungrateful, like maybe I am too much. Shame loves that confusion. Another version of this is when a toxic person demands access to you as proof of loyalty. They want full emotional visibility, but only one way. They want you to tell them everything, right now, all the time. Your fears, your doubts, your private thoughts. And if you don't, you're hiding something. But real intimacy respects choice. Real intimacy says you get to decide when and how you share your story. Toxic intimacy says your story is mine to inspect. And listen, if you grew up in a home where privacy was treated like betrayal, you're especially vulnerable to this. You might have learned early that love means compliance, that if someone is upset, you have to fix it by giving more of yourself away. So when a toxic person makes closeness feel like a test, your nervous system goes, oh, I know this game. Even if it hurts, it feels familiar. And familiar can feel like safe, even when it isn't. Here's why this matters. When intimacy becomes leverage, boundaries start to feel like cruelty. You stop trusting your right to say not that or not now or that's private. You think, if I set a limit, I'm bad. If I need space, I'm selfish. If I don't explain myself, I'm cold. That's the shame trap, tightening. Because now you're not just managing their moods, you're managing your own sense of goodness. I want to say this as clearly as I know how. Boundaries aren't punishment, they're protection for connection. They are the distance at which I can love you and me at the same time. Healthy people might not like your boundaries, but they will respect them. Toxic people don't just dislike boundaries, they interpret them as rebellion because boundaries remove leverage. And if you're listening to this and thinking, oh man, I've given away so much of myself just to keep peace, I want you to be gentle with you. There's nothing wrong with your desire for closeness. That's not the problem. The problem is when someone uses that desire against you. So the question becomes, how do we begin to take our stories back? How do we reclaim intimacy as a place of safety instead of a tool of control? And that's where the way out starts to show itself, not through more shame, but through empathy and action, telling the truth in safe places and choosing what keeps you whole. The way out is empathy plus action. And I know, when you've been living inside the shame trap for a long time, that can sound almost too simple. Like, really? Empathy and action? That's the exit? But stay with me, because this isn't about a neat little self-help slogan. This is about how shame actually works in our lives and what it takes to loosen its grip. Shame thrives in 3 conditions: secrecy, silence, and judgment. It grows when we keep the story locked inside, when we don't say the thing out loud, when we hear that harsh inner narrator go unchecked. Toxic people count on those conditions. They count on you not telling anyone. They count on you second-guessing yourself. They count on you feeling like your pain is proof you're weak. The trap stays strong as long as shame stays hidden. Empathy is what turns the lights on. Empathy is not someone fixing you or advising you or saying, at least. Empathy is someone looking at you and saying, I get it. You're not crazy. That makes sense. And the research is really clear here. Shame cannot survive being spoken and met with empathy. It withers in the presence of a safe witness, not an audience, a witness, someone who can hold your story without using it, someone who doesn't rush you past your feelings, someone who doesn't say, well, what did you do to cause it? But instead says, that sounds really hard. I'm with you. And I want to underline safe because telling your truth to the wrong person can deepen shame. If you go to someone who is also invested in you staying small, they may use your story to confirm the lie. So part of courage is discernment. Who earns the right to hear your story? Who has shown you they can be trusted with the tender parts? Now, empathy alone is not the exit. Empathy is the oxygen that lets you breathe well enough to move. That's where action comes in. Action is what changes the environment that's feeding the shame. It's what takes the truth you've named and turns it into a boundary, a decision, a new pattern. And action doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes action is just naming what's happening. When you say that, I feel belittled. I'm not okay with being spoken to like that. Sometimes action is limiting access. I'm not discussing this with you. Sometimes action is leaving the conversation, leaving the room, leaving the relationship. And yes, that can be terrifying because the shame voice will scream, you're overreacting, you're selfish, you'll be alone. But that's the moment courage shows up. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is feeling fear and choosing what honors you anyway. And let me say something that people don't always want to hear. Stepping out of the shame trap often means grieving because even toxic relationships give us something. Maybe it was history, maybe it was hope, maybe it was a version of love that felt better than being alone. When you choose your worth, you may feel heartbreak, you may feel guilt, you may feel wobbly for a while. That doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. It means you're human and you're untangling from a system that was built to keep you hooked. This is also where self-empathy matters because you're going to have moments where you miss them, doubt yourself, wonder if you could have tried harder. And self-empathy says, of course I'm feeling this. I cared. I wanted it to work. I was doing my best with what I knew. The goal isn't to judge yourself into healing. The goal is to love yourself into healing. So when I say the way out is empathy plus action, I mean, find a safe place to tell the truth, Let yourself be seen without judgment, and then take one brave step that aligns your life with that truth. One step, not 10, not a whole new personality, just one, because one step breaks the spell. One step reminds you that you're not powerless here. And the more you do that, speak, receive empathy, act, the smaller the trap gets, until one day you realize you're not living in it anymore. You're living in your own skin again. That's the work. That's the freedom. And that's what you deserve. So here's what I want to leave you with. Shame is not the truth about you. It's a story about you. A story that got planted in your nervous system through moments of disconnection, criticism, control, or conditional love. Toxic people don't keep you small because they're powerful. They keep you small because shame is powerful when it stays unnamed, when it stays in the dark, when it keeps convincing you that your worth is something you have to earn by disappearing. But you are not here to disappear. You are here to show up, to take up space, to be a full human being with needs and dreams and boundaries and a voice. And if someone can only stay close to you when you're quiet, compliant, or shrinking, that's not connection. That's control. And you don't heal control by working harder to be enough. You heal it by remembering you already are. I know the way out can feel messy. I know it can feel slow. I know there may be grief, guilt, and that shaky moment where your old self wants to crawl back into the familiar trap. That's normal. That's your brain trying to keep you safe by keeping you known. But growth doesn't happen in the known. Growth happens in the brave. So tell the truth in a safe place. Let someone witness your humanity. And then take one step that honors what you know in your bones, one boundary, one honest sentence, one choice to stop negotiating your worth. It won't all change overnight, but it will change. Because every time you refuse to stay small, you're teaching your heart a new story. I belong to me. And that is the deepest kind of freedom. Good luck. I'm rooting for you, and I hope you root for you too.